Life without parole is supposed to be a judgment that says this person is beyond hope, beyond redemption, beyond rehabilitation, has been given opportunities to change and hasn't changed, and therefore should be properly condemned for their commitment to criminality, to violence, to destruction. You can never say that about a child of 13 and 14. All kids do stupid things. All kids do bad things. Poor kids, kids who are living in the streets, kids who have no family, kids who are homeless, kids who are drug addicted, kids who have been subjected to a lot of trauma and violence and abuse tend to do bad things that are much worse, that can be violent, that can be criminal, but they're still kids, and their capacity for change is enormous. And to ignore that capacity to change is to deny their child's status, and I think that's cruel. It's no less cruel than making kids work in factories at 6 or 7, or subjecting kids to prostitution or abusing kids. All of that's wrong because kids have vulnerabilities and needs that have to be acknowledged and protected. We took up Joe's case along with about 20 others because we thought it represented the problems with the plight of kids in the adult criminal justice system that we think are important. The problem of legal representation. I think in this country we treat people better if they're rich and guilty than if they're poor and innocent, and we want to challenge that. We don't think it should be about wealth. We don't think it should be about the resources you have. We think it should be about culpability, about your guilt or your innocence. And so Joe's case fit that criteria. We were concerned about excessive sentencing, and for a 13-year-old to be sentenced to life without parole for a non-homicide was quite extreme, quite unusual, and so it fit that criteria. And we were also concerned about race. The overwhelming majority of these kids who've been condemned to die in prison are kids of color. All of the kids who've been sentenced to life without parole for non-homicides are African American. Most of the kids, 13 and 14, who've been sentenced to die in prison are kids of color, African American, Latino, Native American. And so we wanted to do something about that. Joe's case had a lot of racialized features. It was called Black Boy several times in a derogatory way by witnesses. There were comments made about his appearance that aided the court in finding him worthy of a life without parole sentence. So all of those things were relevant to us in making this the kind of case that we should take. One of the important rights that the framers thought was important is that we protect people from cruel and abusive punishments, because the government has lots of power, and the power to incarcerate, the power to isolate, to take away liberty or to take away life is the most awesome power that government has. And the framers thought it was important to limit that power and to make sure that that power isn't used in a cruel or unusual or abusive way. And that's why they created the Eighth Amendment. And I think that there are punishments that have emerged in the last 20, 25 years that are also cruel and unusual, and we need to make the Eighth Amendment a more robust protection for people in our society than it has been, because I think our capacity for punishment and harsh punishment seems to have grown. Something really radical in this country has happened over the last 35 years, even outside of the juvenile context. I mean, we have become the most punitive place on the planet. We have the highest rate of incarceration in the world. Our prison population went from 200,000 in 1972 to 2.3 million today. We shouldn't be the kind of country that has to reconcile itself to throwing away children. To me, it just, I think we are ultimately going to be stained by our indifference to the plight of kids in the adult prison system. I think we are ultimately going to be burdened by our tolerance of this gross racial discrimination and disparities and the racial bias that has perpetuated that. I think we're going to be condemned by our failures to protect and recognize the needs of kids in the criminal justice system, the way we recognize and protect kids in other contexts. And so for me, I think a favorable decision would be good for our clients, obviously, but I think it would be good for this country.